As you know, all colleges and universities in Ontario will sign a 2017-2020 Strategic Mandate Agreement with the Ministry of Advanced Education and Skills Development, referred to now as MAISD. One of the main differences from the first SMA of 2014-2017 is the addition of metrics and targets. As well, this second SMA is generally more specific regarding differentiation and in particular differentiated program strength and expansion plans. There are 34 system-wide metrics required by MAISD and 14 institution-specific metrics proposed. System-wide metrics will be measured across all colleges using a common calculation formula described in the data dictionary entitled MAISD Metrics Management. The SMA framework prescribed by MAISD has 8 priority sections. Of these 8 sections, only 5 sections have metrics associated with them. In addition to these, colleges were asked to propose 1 to 3 institution-specific metrics that will track progress on differentiation initiatives articulated in the narrative portion of the SMA. In the SMA narrative, colleges were asked to comment on the existing or planned initiatives aimed at improvement. These comments are to describe Fleming's uniqueness and articulate the differentiation pieces for each section. As you know, this was completed and we had 2 opportunities for feedback into this narrative. The Ministry has been developing the metrics and targets portion of the SMA as colleges have been working on the narrative piece. It will be important for you to understand the connection between the narrative of each section and the metrics, so you are encouraged to review the final version of the SMA narrative if you haven't already done so. Let's look at the metrics for each of the SMA sections. The first section is about the student experience. The system-wide metrics in blue are required of every college to track and also set 3-year targets for years 17-18, 18-19, and 19-20. The institution-specific metrics in red will be tracked by Fleming and will also have 3-year targets set. For Section 2, Innovation in Teaching and Learning Excellence, there are 8 system-wide metrics in blue and 3 institution-specific metrics in red to be tracked and also to provide 3-year targets. Access and Equity has 15 system-wide metrics in blue and 3 institution-specific metrics in red. The first 5 metrics are about students with disabilities. 3.3.6 and 7 are about first-generation students. 3.3.8 to 12 are regarding Indigenous students. And 3.3.13 is regarding recipients of OSAP. The last 2 system-wide metrics are about student pathway graduates from college to university and vice versa. Applied Research Excellence and Impact has 2 system-wide metrics in blue and 3 institution-specific metrics in red. And the last section of Innovation, Economic Development, and Community Engagement has 6 system-wide metrics in blue and 2 institution-specific metrics in red. In order to develop predictive analysis and setting targets for the next 3 years, MAISD is using the most recent 3 years of data for each metric. As we only collect data annually rather than by semester or quarterly, there is only 1 data point per year. In most cases, the most recent data available is for 2016-17, but in a few cases, the most recent data available is 2015-16 data. For this example of overall student satisfaction rate, the most recent data available is 16-17 KPI data. Therefore, Year 1 is 14-15 data, Year 2 is 15-16, and Year 3 is 16-17 data. In order to forecast targets for the next 3 years, MAISD suggests using the last 2 data points and creating a trend line to predict the next 3 years out. Using the last 2 data points, 77.65% in 15-16 and 78.64% in 16-17, A trend line in gray would forecast targets of 79.63% in 1718, 80.62% in 1819, and 81.61% in 1920. But a trend line based on only 2 points of data is not a reliable predictive model. If we use all 3 points from the last 3 years, a trend line would look like this. Where the trend line using the last 2 years of data forecast an increase over the next 3 years, using 3 points of data predicts a decline in the next 3 years. This is very conflicting information, so more information is needed. However, using data from 4 years or more also creates a problem. Much has changed in our college, in the college system, and in the populations we serve over the last 4 to 5 years. In fact, it has been argued that we are not even the same place, and using data that is too old is not really relevant to our situation today. So how to proceed? If we look at the actual 3-year data points in blue, I think we need to create a channel of what is possible. I would suggest the highest point in year 1, or 1415, at 80.31% could be considered a line of resistance, meaning a target in the next 3 years is probably not going to exceed our highest point reached to date in the last 3 years. Likewise, a line of support at the lowest point in the last 3 years could be drawn at 77.65%. There is a high probability that the targets over the next 3 years would occur within this channel and between these 2 lines. Also, with the SMA, the ministry is looking for us to improve where possible, so a gradual increase from our recent 3 years, or 1617, might look something like this. Where this moderated yellow line resides depends on qualitative information. As leaders, you are aware of things that will impact the metrics over the next 3 years. For instance, we are aware that student satisfaction with facilities will be impacted by the SIF renovation currently underway for the next year. Moderating the yellow line to account for this impact will require some thought on the part of leaders in the college who have in-depth understanding about these areas. Using a heat map can be beneficial to help assess the likelihood and impact a given situation, scenario, or strategy will have on a metric. This guide is offered to help. Please consider the metrics that you feel will be negatively impacted by extenuating circumstances and situations, or positively affected by strategies, and advise on how to moderate the targets for the next 3 years. Preliminary graphs have been created for the metrics that need this qualitative assessment. Thank you in advance for considering these issues as we try to build an SMA metrics commitment for the next 3 years.